When you take a look at all of the world events, national events, neighborhood and events, read the newspapers, nightly news, internet, all these things, it can be rather disturbing. Now, there's some serious things happening. Where are they going to go? How bad they be? I can't predict any of those things, but I know that a lot of people are kind of worried about what's really happening. Well, from my standpoint, what you want to do is to figure out how to reduce the fear, the worry, the stress, the uncertainty of these external things that you cannot control. You have to take a look at things that you can control and do something about. Well, we call that the preparedness box. This box that about getting ready for things, and some people call it prepping or whatever it is. I like to call it provident living. What is that box all about? Now, to a lot of people, it's kind of, well, a mystery. How much, what do you have to do? What's it going to cost? How much time do I really want to do this? What if nothing happens? Then what? Because I spent time, money, and so they kind of scratch their heads about those kinds of things. Well, first off, let's just understand that there's a lot of people in many different situations and personal persuasions about what's happening, what they need to do. And when I talk about these groups of people, this is not about judging them. It's not about shaming people or blaming them or anything. It's just about recognizing reality of what's going on around us and how people are reacting and responding to things. One of these groups of people are those that they're isolated, whether they're physically isolated or socially isolated or whatever it is, they're just cut off and clueless. They're not aware of what's going on out there. There's another group of people that are, well, they're aware because they're looking at all this stuff all the time and they're thinking about it, talking about it, but they're just not wanting to take action for whatever reason. They don't want to get involved. Maybe it's because of how they might look to other people. Maybe it's because they're distracted or whatever it is. They're just not getting involved. Then we have a group of people that are, well, I call them broken. And I mean that kindly in a sense because there are some people, because of injury, because of emotional things that happen to them, because of what may have happened with birth, they were born that way, all kinds of things where they don't have the capacity, they're broken, or something has happened in their life and they just cannot get involved or deal with it. Then we have another group of people here they're destitute and incapable of taking action. And it might be, we can think of people that are living on the streets or under a bridge, or they're having to live way off someplace simply because they don't have income, they don't have money, whatever it is, and they can't do anything about it at the moment. Now, one thing I'd like to make about some of those people that have been thrown into those circumstances, some of those people are great survivors and they're going to do much better than some of the people that may have a lot of resources. Another discussion for another time. Now, what I want you to know that everyone is now prepared for the future at some level. At some level in your life, you are prepared, whether you've really got in that preparedness box or not. And what I want you to understand is you will go forward from where you are, from where they are at that time when something happens. You can't go from where you wish you were, where you thought you should be, where you were going to be. You're going to go from where you are right now. So that's what we want to be thinking about. Now, when we talk about this preparedness box, there's kind of like two classes of things we're going to be looking at. One of them is money and material resources. That's the physical thing that you have. Maybe you gather supplies or tools or things like that. You have money to do that. And you've been converting some of those things into these material resources. Very valuable to have. You're storing them away. You're building up those stores as you have time to do that, as you have the resources to do it. Another group of things is the time and experience. Time to devote to learning and gathering skills and understanding and studying and everything, and getting experience with these things so you can turn that into knowledge. These are the only two things you have to invest in being prepared. Material resources, including money, and then you have your time, what you've learned, your knowledge, and the experience that you've gained. Well, get into the preparedness box. Well, why? Well, why should I get into that? Well, one point I've kind of made, but let's go back to that again. You see, it's to minimize your mental, emotional, and physical pain when something happens, when something big happens. Minimize the pain, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional. And then to minimize the pain and suffering of your family, those people around you, the ones that you love or have responsibility for. You want to put yourself in a position where you can afford to be wrong. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's take auto insurance, for instance. Now, you've been paying for auto insurance or homeowners insurance or whatever it is. You bought insurance, you're spending money on that all the time. You don't have to do much, you just pay your bill. And, I've been paying auto insurance for 30, 40, 50, more than 50 years now. That's tens of thousands of dollars. Am I upset that I haven't, wiped out my car, totaled it, rolled it, whatever it is, got in some big smash up? No, I'm grateful I haven't. I put myself in a position where I could afford to be wrong about paying all that money for those years just in case. And that's what it's there for. Well, that's what this preparedness box is all about. Just in case. So put yourself in a position where you can afford to be wrong. And yeah, people might laugh at you and look at you and say, oh, look at all the money you spent and nothing happened. Well, you could afford to be wrong. See, if you were to say, oh, nothing's going to happen, not in this day and age, we're too smart for that, we're too sophisticated, our country is too big to fail, to get into trouble or what have you, whatever, you have to be right. You cannot be wrong when you take that stance, because if you're wrong, you're in deep yogurt is what it comes to. I mean, you're in trouble. So you want to put yourself in a position where you can afford to be wrong. Now let's look at this from a national perspective. Nationally, you see, a prepared people need have no fear of other nations or groups. Prepared people. Now that's both the individual households, the companies, the organizations, the nation itself, and it's set up so that it can protect itself as best it can, or it can respond to whatever happens because they're prepared to deal with natural or man-made things. That's one reason we want to be prepared nationally. Now then, a prepared people need have no fear of their neighbors. We can think of our neighbor nations or countries, but how about within the country? If every household in this country was prepared and things really broke down, you had economic collapse, you have whatever it is that occurs, war, some really nasty thing, but the people are prepared physically, mentally, emotionally, and have the materials and things so they can ride through those things, then, well, you take care of yourself and everybody can take care of themselves. Everybody can help everybody else. And here's the other part of that little puzzle that you need to understand. Desperate people do desperate things. If everybody's prepared, nobody's going to be desperate. And if everybody's prepared and there's a few people that have lost everything, well, then people can band together and help them because we're all prepared together. If you just have a handful of people that are prepared to deal with these things, then everybody's going to look to them and say, hey, take care of me. Well, you can't. I cannot feed my neighbors. They're going to have to feed themselves. I'll try and help them as best I can, but I just can't store enough whatever or have a big enough garden to feed all the people around me. We need to take care of ourselves. All right, so let's go back to this thing about the preparedness box, and you get in the preparedness box. Why? For all those 3 reasons I just told you about. That's the reason you want to get in. Now, what you need to understand is in this preparedness box, you take control of it. You do that. You're not waiting for somebody else because they may not get around to it. And this nation or your neighbors, they can't take care of you all the time. That's your responsibility. This is something you control. And you will face the future with whatever level of readiness you have at the time when something occurs. And the question is, well, how's that going to work out for you? How's that going to be for you and your family? That's the question you have to ask yourself. You say, well, nothing's going to happen. Well, then you have to be right. And if it does happen, ooh, you're in big wazooey. All right. Now, we all get in the box someplace. I mean, we got to start. So up in this left-hand corner where you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of material things, you don't have a lot of time and experience about it. I mean, you get in the box, you do the best you can with what you have and keep doing it steadily and just do what you can do as much as you can do. Now, as you have more time and more, resources, especially as you're gaining experience, you're gonna get a little deeper into that box, a little further along, and it may be that you have more money and material things than you have time at the moment because of well, what your job is or what your personal circumstances are. Or maybe as time goes on, you have more time and you have experience that you've been gathering. And as you're gaining experience, you have more capabilities and you can do more with what you have, those resources. What you're looking to do is get deep into this box where you have lots of resources, lots of capabilities because you have the experience, the knowledge, and you've been gathering things, even if it's just slowly getting things. Here's something I want you to understand. What you know is far more important than what you have. What you know, what you understand, what you believe, what you can do, all the things that you can do, that's more important than having things because the material things can be taken away from you or they can be lost or you can be separated from them. And if you know what to do and how and why things work, then you can still take action. So that's why you're wanting to gather both of these things, that the experiences, the knowledge, the capability to do things, and the material resources you're gathering. And here's another little formula I want you to understand about knowledge. See what we're trying to get: lots of resources, things, and lots of knowledge and understanding. Well, what's the definition of knowledge? The way I've defined it for years is knowledge equals information multiplied by experience. You see, just reading a book or listening to a lecture or watching a video, that's information. It's not knowledge until you do something with it, till you gain experience, know how to do it. Also, sometimes people are saying, hey, this is what you ought to do. You try it and it's a bust. I mean, it's like, well, maybe it works in one situation, but it doesn't work in all of them. You need to know that before things happen. So here's our preparedness box and all these things that I've shared with you about. You're going to go from whatever position you are in when something happens. You're going to have the resources, the experience, and knowledge that you're going to have when the time comes. You want to have as many of those things as you can. You're investing in yourself, your family, your well-being, and understand that you need to gather this knowledge, but that's not about just reading. It's about doing. It's not about listening. It's about hands-on. All right. So what are you going to do from here? What are you going to do at this point? One of the things you can do, and I would promote, is that you come to jimsway.com. There's a lot of resources there, and you'll see it's dynamic and changing, being added to all the time. Now, what you have is there's a video on there. It was made in 2008. I've been doing this for years, decades. I've been involved in this. And that's what hope is all about, is what that one is there. It's a short one. You ought to watch that. That's an important one to watch. And then we have another one. This will tell you about who I am, what I stand for, what I do. And I also make the point, I'm in the hope business. I'm not in the gloom and doom business, even though I talk bluntly about some things, but I'm in the hope business and helping people have hope because they understand what to do, why to do things. And then there's another one, which is the tour of Jim's Way, to help you find the different resources that are on there, because there's lots of videos, lots of information. There's more coming all the time. And I'm doing live classes on Wednesday nights and Saturdays. You see, my mission is to reach and teach as many people as possible with principle-based training. I mean, that's the simple statement. That's what I do. I reach out to people. I want to teach them. The rest of that story is simply this, that the reason I want to do that is to create a climate and lifestyle of provident living so that they, you, me, are prepared to meet the challenges of a changing, of an unfamiliar world with hope and confidence, no matter what may come. That's what it's all about. I invite you to come to my classes, get the newsletters, study and learn, and I will help you be prepared for, well, no matter how bad it gets, you can be ready to deal with it with hope and with confidence. Thank you very much. This is Jim Phillips. We'll see you in class. Goodbye.